What's up, everybody? We are live on a show whose title I just forgot. It's the C2C CFB UD show, where Ethan Sauers and myself talk to about 12 different followers and fans of ours on Twitter and on YouTube on a Thursday afternoon. Ethan, last week we had an awesome set of Friday games. It was incredible. We had a lot of juice, a lot of action. It was fun. Perfectly timed Halloween, and a good enough game, obviously, on Friday night to get us going into the weekend. Is that kind of like the same vibes for you? I just have not been that excited at all about this set of Thursday and Friday night games.
Yeah, I was really bummed when I saw that there's only one game tonight. Just seems like a missed opportunity on Halloween. You always get like the crazy like fan shots in Halloween games, it feels like. Like even this past weekend, there were people like dressed up and like the commentators were talking about it. But missed opportunity, not doing the weekday or the weekday slate, jamming it full here. But Tulane Charlotte's probably one of the better of the midweek games that we get, at least. What's your overall take here? Let's jump right in. Is there anything that jumps off the board to you?
I think this Mekhi Hughes. Mox and I kind of briefly chatted about it. This Mekhi Hughes number feels a little bit high.
Yeah.
I mean, 130 rush yards is a lot of rushing yards. So I do kind of like that. I almost wonder, like, would it be better to do it combined or to do it separately? But I think I would rather just go under on the yardage. I have him around 130, and here he's at 130. I mean, if you have Prize Picks, might have it a little bit higher, but I doubt it. They typically follow each other. So
yeah,
not to say that name out loud, but yeah, I think I have never had, by the way, even if I have never had success on Prize Picks ever. And I bet like the same stuff. And somehow I have been so much better on Underdog compared to it. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So and ixo facto, Mekhi Hughes under 130.5, I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And conversely, I kind of like the over on the receiving yards. So I think I definitely would stick to the rush yards under.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the combined better. Looking just, casually at the box score, he's getting about a reception a game, or he's getting exactly a reception a game for the past 3 weeks. The thing is, sometimes that's a nice little deep wheel route, or he's able to find some space and make guys miss. So, you're getting the extra 16.5. I think the combined rushing receiving play is probably my favorite, especially considering I don't think they're going to be throwing the ball that much. So I don't think it's like a huge risk on top of that. But yeah, I agree, though. I think that Mekhi Hughes number is a little too bloated.
It's just big. That's a large number. I mean, even that's a huge number. 130 is going to be some of the highest you'll see. Charlotte's obviously a team you can pick on. Yeah. You guys talked about liking the over on Mensa passing touchdowns. Do you want to fill me in as to why you actually like that?
I think that was Mox and Justice were the ones who were in on that a little heavier than I am. I do like and again, we love our friends at Underdog, so I'm not going to say any other names, but the 1.12x here on the passing touchdown higher. There are some alternative spots around the interwebs that have a better boost to that. And so when I'm looking at a boost, I saw, I think 1.98x sometime this morning. So it could be that, Underdog had it and they just caught up with it and it's been hammered a little bit. So they brought it down. But at 1.12x, I probably would fade the touchdown play. I don't hate the passing yard stat there going higher. But again, I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball that much tonight. So it's rough. I don't love anything, honestly, outside of the Mekhi Hughes under. I was looking a little bit at that Mario Williams number, the 42.5, and going lower. I think that's a decent option. I know Yul Keith Brown has been getting some love from Tulane recently. So they've been spreading the ball around a decent amount.
They'll go in like spurts of just not really throwing it a ton.
Yeah.
So I do think, so our stuff technically likes the over on Mario, but the under or the lower on Fleming and Keith Brown.
And Brown, okay.
It does feel like one of those two will hit the lower. So they're just, if they're not going to throw a ton, then they're not going to be able to feed three different guys. I think Mensa's a promising young player, but I don't think he's like spread around to three different guys.
They just don't give him that much like freedom in that offense yet.
They really kind of just they really don't push it if they don't have to sometimes.
Yeah.
So
cool. You want to talk anything else on this one, or are you good to jump to Boise, San Diego?
Let's jump to Boise State.
Okay, cool.
I loved that. I'm going back for it again. Last weekend, it was the higher on the 13.5 receiving yards for GT. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'll take the better 2 yards here and take the higher on the 11.5 receiving yards.
That totally makes sense. I am kind of interested in the Danny O'Neill number here at 182.5. Really feels like Sean Lewis is going to have to dig into his bag of tricks and like open things up if they want to compete with Boise. And this isn't necessarily like Boise just got done with their UNLV game. Like might be in a little bit of a lull. San Diego State on a Friday night in Boise. I don't know. I think this has sneaky shootout potential, and so the over on 182.5 or the higher on 182.5 is something that I'm in on.
Katz brought it up that he's a little banged up. He missed some time in that Washington State game, so
okay.
I haven't seen anything about him not playing, but he definitely. I feel like he either doesn't play or he plays the full game. So I think he'd be safe either way. I think what's really interesting with this past game is these receivers.
Yeah.
Lewis Brown and the tight end Jude Wolfe both missed last game because of suspension.
Okay.
It felt like it was a 1-game suspension, but because they basically said they're going to miss the game, it's been handled. Yeah. So I think they're back, but these two lines for Bennett and Jayshawn Polk are a tad high for what I think is now like a pretty crowded receiver room. Yeah. Polk is definitely kind of like a shorter yardage type guy, yards per target, whereas Bennett is like legitimately now behind Lewis Brown. Like he is a second string player. Like if you were to click on Bennett, you're not going to see you see sparing usage here if you want to even look at like the actual target distribution. And they both start at that kind of that right receiver spot. 7 targets last game in the start, but then he had 2 the week before that, then 6, then 2, then 3, then 1. So like he'll get the sparing. If it's like a shootout, maybe he might get some more usage if they go pass heavy, maybe. But I think the Bennett one is the more intriguing of the two, and you just gotta hope he doesn't have like a 35-yard catch, which is pretty low percentage anyways.
I think that's a definitely good point on Brown being most likely back for that one. It is interesting though. I mean, Mekhi Shaw got 7 targets last week. So even if, Brown comes back and he assumes that Jayshawn Polk, the share that Jayshawn Polk got last week with the 13 targets, or at least the heavy target game, like there's still a chance that they have enough targets to go around. But, I do think particularly that Nate Bennett line is one that I'm considering lower on.
I think they both make sense. Do you like anything in the pass game for Boise? It's kind of tough in these games that are potentially blowouts. That they just get so good on the ground that they're not needed through the air.
Yeah, I don't know. This G&T 187.5. I agree that I think the receiving play is definitely the optimal way to go. I might mess around, press my luck on another lower on G&T though. With that rushing number.
Is there any concern about the injury that took place last week?
Yeah,
I think it's left arm.
Yeah, I mean, I know that their whole shtick is going to be force him the ball because he's the Heisman candidate, and when does Boise get a Heisman candidate? Like, that said, like I just think that if they're serious about a playoff run, and I think they're probably the front runner in G5 right now after that Liberty loss, and just the way that they've been able to handle business, and they competed against Oregon. If they're serious about their playoff hopes, you do want to be cognizant of that, and maybe he gets 180 yards, and they say, hey, that's impressive enough.
Maybe they say, yeah, Ethan's got the high or
Ethan's
the
got the
lower
lower,
at
man.
187,
Yeah.
so let's just pump it right here.
Yeah, but I do think health is a concern, and they should be taking care of him, even if they are really trying to gas him up for the Heisman.
Yeah, I would say you got to get hit to have an impact to his injury, and who knows? Maybe he just goes untouched the whole night. So
maybe he drops every pass because of that hand injury.
Why did you got to do that to me? Why are you wishing that on me? Not fun, not fair. One of the biggest games of the weekend, I think presumably the biggest, is Ohio State Penn State 3 versus 4.
Yep.
What's your take? I'll let you take the lead here.
Yeah, so I saved this for the show because I want to get a true reaction here. Quinshon over on 51.5 seems like the play, I think. Just to me, I think that they want to try and place. I mentioned this on the pod that I think will drop tomorrow morning, but like it seems like they want to try and steal a little bit of mojo from Michigan's playbook the past 2 years and really try and play a little bit of bully ball, run heavy. I'm a little bit hesitant with injury and the fact that he's coming off of surgery. Like he played last week, but even last week he had 10 attempts and 29 yards. He had a catch. But this seems like you went out, you got Quinshon for games like this. Like you want to be able to showcase him, pound the ball. I'm curious what your numbers say. Because from a gut level, I feel like Quinshon could have a big game.
We like the overs, and slightly. Judkins a little bit more than Henderson. Yeah. It's hard because they both ran like 10 for 30 yards last week.
Yep.
And Penn State's defense has to be better than Wisconsin's, right? So,
or Nebraska's.
Nebraska's. So it's just really hard to. It's hard. Yeah. I think the over's there, the higher's there. It's not the sexiest of plays, but I think the running backs in the 4 running backs are in this game are very interesting. Like,
yeah,
I think the safest of the 4 running backs to me would be the lower on Katron Allen, 56.5 yards. Feels a bit steep considering Singleton's like up there in terms of usage, and he didn't get the number. He went higher last week, just barely on like 2 garbage carries. Like they could literally just run the clock out and like by kneeling it, and they gave him a football. So, what was you like the lower or the higher you're avoiding?
I'm probably avoiding mainly just because I do think Singleton's still a little banged up. He hasn't looked as explosive since coming back after missing UCLA. So I'm really hesitant. I don't love playing him in DFS this week, and I don't think that I was looking for a number. They don't even have him on the board here.
They took him off, I think, maybe he was only available on FanDuel. Okay. Yeah, he's on FanDuel. He's at 48.5 yards. Singleton.
Yeah, so. That said, I would probably take the 5.5 receiving yards higher for Katron if I'm doing anything over here, just because I think that they're going to have to throw the ball. I think Penn State's only shot at winning this game is going to come from an impressive passing performance. I think the big play that I am waiting for is I'm really hoping that I get a Harrison Wallace reception number. I'll probably take anything over 3.5, which I think is kind of where he's been. He's lived in the 3.5, 2.5 range the past 2 weeks, as far as what they project. And he's done well. 7 targets, 5 receptions last week, 6-3 against USC, 3 for 3 against UCLA. It seems like a game that Tyler Warren is likely going to be scripted out of it by Ohio State. Like, you got to bracket him. You got to do something. Like, I know they move him all over the field and force him the ball, but like, you got to figure out a way to stop him. And that seems like priority 1. If you've seen Penn State's offense at all, like, when Tyler Warren is not a focal point, this team really sputters. So, Yeah, I don't love the receiving number or the rushing numbers, but I like over on 37.5, but I'd really like to see a receiving like an actual reception number.
Yeah, Andrew Katz on the comments says because he's just okay when talking about Tyler Warren. GP36 asked us to talk about Singleton 27.5 yards. He says he thinks it's a little high. I kind of agree. I think it's a little high, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, I agree. I would not feel comfortable with a 27.5 reception receiving yard number.
What about Emeka Egbuka? You talked about him on the pod.
Yep.
Came to caching. So with a number like 58.5 receiving yards, are you a fan of the higher there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, my stuff likes the over there, or the higher there, and then small lowers on Smith, and small lower on Smith, but a decently high lower on Cornell Tate, 44.5 receiving yards.
And you're talking strictly yardage for Jeremiah Smith, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Because I kind of like the higher on 4.5 receptions, to be honest, too.
He's such a big play guy. It's a little threatening. 4, 13, and 5 targets last 3 games. I don't know. 13 targets against Oregon. I mean, if some of these teams that are just now starting to play tough games, like real matchups, like Ohio State played Oregon, now they get Penn State. You wish you would have more of a idea of how they would tackle these types of games. You see this more often in SEC. It's like, oh, I know how Georgia plays against great teams. I know how Bama plays against great teams. We're starting to see it with Texas, and so you get a little bit of theme of like how to project them. Like, do they use the same type of players and spread the ball around similarly, or do they really siphon all their targets to their top 3 type of thing?
That 13 targets, 9 receptions against Oregon is
scary.
Yeah,
to go up lower. GP36 also asked G Scott, which I was actually going to bring up. G Scott, I like the little tamale guy on the 1.5 lower receptions.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's a smart option. I think the way that they attack Penn State is going to be middle of the field, but I think that they have the receivers to do that, to where the talent level is going to be. They're going to have a better mismatch with their receivers inside than they will tight end. Personally, that's just my lean on that.
He's had some. Yeah. He's starting to see some usage, like just targets 2, 3, and 4 in his last 3 of his last 4 games. He had a 0. I want to say he played that game when he had 0 targets.
Yeah.
So I think the 15.5 receiving yards is probably fine to go lower on, but I think I'd probably just take the extra payout and go the under 1.5 receptions.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
What about
quarterback play here?
No, I don't like a quarterback play here. Well, Aller's obviously.
Howard's the only one on the
board. Howard's the only one. Our stuff's like pretty dead on with him.
Yeah.
So I'll probably avoid. I don't know. Rushing yards doesn't feel the worst, but I typically try to avoid QB rushing yards against like teams that are just typically great defenses. Penn State,
I will say like they haven't really gotten the sack numbers that they've gotten in recent years. So.
Well, then that might change things.
Yeah.
That might be worth tackling then. Let's see. What other games on Saturday do we want to chat about?
Can I ask one quick thing real quick? If we get a confirmation that Aller is starting, say, late tomorrow, early Saturday, and then put a passing number on there, what would you feel comfortable going higher than?
For Aller, like a $120?
Ridiculous.
210?
Okay. I'm right there. I was thinking like 220.5 is probably my max.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, Ohio State's defense has been great. They just look good.
Yeah.
Against Nebraska in recent weeks. Oregon, I don't think you could ever. Oregon is a top-ranked team that has a great offense. Penn State is a top-ranked team that is a little bit more.
Has an offense.
That is a little bit more like it's not there because of their offense. They're there because of like a combination of things. Not that Oregon's not there for that reason too, but like that's not really their bread and butter. It never really has been. So
I'm just so pumped to see Kotelnicki in calling a big game. Like it's got me pretty amped, but very good chance it ends in disappointment for me. So
yep, I would agree with that one. So let's go to Florida, Georgia. That's a good game, right? We're hype about this one. There's a couple of the plays here that I really, really like. Starting with Carson Beck, higher 281.5. This is what I was talking about with like the whole, hey, like these teams that have played a bunch of competitive games against good teams. what do they do, right? Well, Georgia passes the football, whether they're losing, whether they're up a lot, whether they're in a competitive game, they throw the football. So I really like the higher on 281.5 for Beck.
Yeah, I can get behind it. I know I'm on record, but not technically yet because it hasn't been published. But I'm on record saying I think Florida has a shot in this one. Anxious to see what Georgia fans think about that. But yeah, I think 281.5 is probably an overplay or a higher play rather. Man, I really I'm bad at that.
I've done better today. You have not.
I have not.
You have not.
It's been a low sleep week. I'll say that.
Yeah, limited a little bit here too. My child is just being a little embarrassed.
I think the one that I like more, I like the other side of it. I like DJ Lagway 191.5 higher.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're really they have to unleash him, right? Like Billy Napier.
DJ Lagway mean though?
Billy Napier is like he's dead in the water if they don't pull off like a nice win somewhere, like a surprise win somewhere. Lagway's been decent recently. Put up decent numbers against Kentucky, like very interesting. 259. Granted, he threw the ball 14 times. Like they're just chucking it. Like it's hope and a prayer. It seems like a little bit.
Does Trey Wilson being out hurt this play though?
I don't think so. I think Elijah Badger is capable of assisting him right there. Badger really saw an uptick too when we got Lagway in. Last week, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 148 yards. Like that seems to be the connection in my head of where Lagway wins. I think he helps a guy like Badger a ton. I think they complement each other well. DK, he's been a little like underrated almost. I feel like just he's a guy who can definitely. I mean, obviously with Mertz, like he had that connection from Wisconsin. With Lagway in here though, like he's pretty much done consistently well. Like he hasn't seen a huge drop off. His numbers are decreasing the last 3 games in a row. But it feels, like I said, there's some weird rivalry voodoo in a game like this where Georgia has had some very tough games recently and Florida is breaking in a young quarterback who's athletic and hyped up. It's an interesting spot for them to be in, and I'm okay taking some hires on this Florida team. I am curious. I know you talked about him on our podcast. What do you think of that ETN number, 81.5?
No dice for me there. This is going to be like GT round 2. I like the higher on the receiving yards. We talked about on the pod. I just think that he's used in the passing game so much, and he's a good talent, obviously. So between 3 and 6 targets at least for him. And I think that leads to 20.5 is not a big number. Yeah. Not for a guy with his kind of movement skills. So I like the higher there more, I would say, than Beck. I like the slightly higher on Arian Smith. And then I'm pretty much out on the rest. I was hoping I could get like a Delp or something and go lower to kind of help with that boost, but it doesn't shake out that way. Beck kind of spreads it around enough for these top guys to not really pop in hires. Yeah,
that makes sense. Look, comment in the chat from Brett. Is Florida fired up to defend ETN? They got to be, right? Like that's got to be a little
definitely some levels of trader there
for sure. Do we want to talk one more? We got one more in the tank, or we want to do our picks?
Let's do one more. Is there a play that screams to you?
I know we talked a lot about Higgins and Noel. Those numbers are too high for me to touch, I think. So I don't think nothing jumps out immediately there. I was kind of interested. I was looking earlier. What do they have? They've got 44.5 for Avery Johnson. I kind of like the higher on that 44.5 number against Houston. You mentioned, earlier this week about some concerns about the 0 rushing attempts that he had against West Virginia. Do you have a lean or anything on Avery Johnson there?
I don't want to bet a higher on a guy that just will not run randomly. So I am out on it personally. I've been impressed by his passing skills. So I think overall he's played better, but I think I'm probably just avoiding QB rush yard numbers are just so fickle.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Instead of looking at that quarterback, what did you think of Braden Locke against your Nittany Lions? Because we really like the lower of 199.5.
Did they play USC this week? Is that
they play Iowa?
Iowa, okay.
At Iowa.
Honestly, I'd take the over.
Really?
Yeah. To me, he doesn't seem so. Granted, I didn't watch a whole lot of Locke before the Penn State game, but he's confident and he's decently accurate. Sometimes he just doesn't see coverage though. Like he makes some bad decisions. But I don't think that is like, I don't think they're going to take the ball out of his hand. I don't think that he's in danger necessarily of, them really nerfing him or like not allowing him to throw the ball. They need him to develop. Like, I feel like they're going to ride him. I don't know. I like
it
over.
Took him a ton of attempts is the thing to get there. Last week. I will say I'm not encouraged by the passing yards allowed by Iowa. I will quickly run through it and then we can wrap up. Iowa gave up 120 to Northwestern. Very nice. Then it was 256, 266, 209, 209, 229, 272. So basically, they have given up the higher in 7 of the last 8 or 6 of the last 7. Not an encouraging sign. But I think that they want to run the football with Tobby Walker. Iowa clearly wants to run the football. And the only problem here is game script favors a higher on Locke. But I am going to go ahead and just think that I'm not impressed by Locke as a quarterback. How much of that yardage even was on that final drive where they dinked and dunked to Will Pauling 100 times?
Probably about 50.
He had to have 4 or 5 receptions on that last drive, right? Will Pauling. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. And you know what? Just because I'm confident, I'll go.
You taking it?
I'm going to go that as one of my 2. I'm going to take the under on 199.5.
You know what I got to do? I got to take the higher on it, and I got to try and double up on you. I got to.
Well, you don't have to worry about it. Last week I got nothing right. I know you didn't get Lane right. Did you? What did Quint Allen finish on the ground?
I don't think he got there.
I don't think he did either.
It was
pretty performance by us.
Pretty miserable, yeah.
Shoot. All right, so you're gonna double up on me and go.
Yeah, double up on it.
You double up on me and go over. Well, I'm gonna go back to the well, like I said, and go GT over 11.5 receiving yards. This is like my new Kyron Jones.
I'll show some conviction on the Lagway over 191.5 passing.
What's the number again?
191.5.
191.5. Okay, It's not the craziest of numbers. I think we have him around like 186. So it's not like the most egregious line. But
they can get there in a blowout. Like Lagway can still hit that, and they get.
That's not how it works, though. We never win when there's blowouts. We only lose when there's blowouts. There's when we bet Davis Warren to go over 165.
Yeah,
he sits in the fourth quarter. When we go under or we go lower, he gets a final drive of 80 yards to hit the higher. That's how it works.
How do you feel about Kalel Moling 66.5 rushing and receiving combined?
This is one of those ones where I think I would go combined because I don't think he does anything.
Exactly.
His receiving yard line is 0.5. So,
and I think why are they giving him an extra 7 yards?
Yeah, it's actually lowered. I think it was at like 1.5, maybe 2.5 earlier in the week. So everybody's moving that way. So awesome. Well,
I like the under there for sure. Just a bonus
lower. Well, awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Got a lot of content coming out. The main slate article is up. The night slate article is coming soon if it's not out already. The podcast will be coming out in the next 24 hours if it's not already. So tons of stuff for you to check out for DFS stuff for this weekend. Happy drafting and good luck, guys.